What is going on, guys? This is Bradley alongside Zach, and you are listening to the Charm City Sideline podcast. Be sure to like the video, hit the subscribe button, and tonight we welcome Sutton, friend of the show, to discuss everything that's been going on with the Ravens right now. Week 15 Q&A, guys. Feel free to comment any questions you have in the live chat. Sutton, how are you doing, man? And also, how do you feel about this 6-7 Ravens team right now?
Dare I say, I feel worse about the 6-7 Ravens team than I did about the 1-5 Ravens team. And that may seem like a little bit of a hot take, but it's just like when we were 1-5, it felt like, okay, we have time. You know what a lot of older people say is like, oh, you young people waste time in your life thinking that you have time, right? When you really don't. You got to make it happen while you got to strike while the iron's hot, basically. You guys have heard that analogy too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like right now, it feels like the Ravens are running out of time. And we just got done talking about it before we went on live here. I don't have any sort of faith that this Ravens team, surprise, and just kind of foreshadowing my mood for this episode, right? My tone. I don't have a whole lot of faith that this Ravens team can put together 16 quarters of good football to end the season, or at least the majority of those 16 quarters to bring it home. So overall, right now, man, I'm not feeling good, but I'm ready to get into it. Thanks for having me on again.
Of course, thanks for coming on. How are you feeling, Zach? A couple days removed from the Steelers loss.
A little bit better, and I was gonna say a little bit more hopeful, but it really is a very little amount. Like, sure, I think this team is capable of running this late, but it makes me feel like I'm thinking like John Harbaugh is right now. Like every time you see him in a press conference, it's this hopeful, confident kind of guy, and I'm trying to kind of take a step back as a fan and analyst, I guess, doing this, and it's a weird feeling. Again, I guess the Bengals don't have T. Higgins and Hendrickson, so you do have a chance to literally right your wrongs from a week ago. So we'll have to see. But before that, we got to break down a few situations, I think.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about tonight, and very few topics to talk about, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting one as we get a super chat from Heather. We really appreciate you, Heather. Do you guys think they brought in this offensive guard to replace Flair Voorhees? Great comment. The Ravens signed today. What was his name? I already forgot.
Laken Tomlinson?
Yeah,
Laken Tomlinson. And to the practice squad, they cut Carl Lawson. So they bring in a guard after Falelei's maybe worst game of his career on Sunday. Sutton, I guess we'll kick it to you first. What do you think about this?
First of all, shout out to Heather, always supporting the Ravens community. Shout out to her. Shout out to everybody, the whole flock who, even when the Ravens are in a downturn of a year, still coming through and supporting. We love that. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to Charm City Sideline as well, man. These guys are doing it up over here. But in terms of Heather's comment here, do we think that they brought in Laken Tomlinson to replace Falele or Voorhees? The answer is no. Point blank, period. They brought in Laken Tomlinson as a warm body, just like they brought in Kenyon Green as a warm body, just like they brought in the likes of Carl Lawson, who was just a warm body, And it was funny because somebody had put out a tweet. Actually, it was my guy Ramey. He put out a tweet earlier today and said, he was reacting to the Carl Lawson news. And he said, Carl Lawson must have had like the worst stretch of practices like ever known to man. And literally 4 minutes after Ramey tweeted that, Carl Lawson himself quote tweeted Ramey and said, actually, no, quite the contrary. I had some of my best practices. It was just an organizational decision, and roster dynamics, quote unquote, is basically what they told Carl Lawson and why they wanted to go ahead and move on from him. So, it just doesn't really strike me as Laken Tomlinson move. It doesn't really strike me as a move that says, yeah, we're going to potentially see some rotation between Falele and this new guy, Laken Tomlinson. No, not at all. Not at all. I think it's the only reason why they're doing it is because Ben Cleveland is suspended now for performance enhancing drugs or substance abuse or something like that. And now they need an extra guy at guard just in case of an emergency, right? As if we're not already experiencing an emergency at the guard position.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. So it's funny you said a warm body, because immediately when I think of the opposite, a cold body, I think of a dead body. Like the offensive line room right now, I guess specifically, I'm going to say the guards, is operating like that, where you're not getting any production whatsoever. You bring in Tomlinson as, I guess, a body to feel out the room, to be the backup and give him an opportunity, and that's really it. Like it's not supposed to be a replacement as much as and any one of us want it to be. And it honestly makes me think a lot about someone like Emory Jones, who had the opportunity last week, not against the Steelers, but the week before, in rotations, and then kind of just gets taken out of it. Like last week against the Steelers, no opportunities whatsoever. And you still bring in these other veteran guys as, I guess, backups, maybe guys to see if it would work out. You just genuinely don't know anymore, because if you see someone play as poor as Faalele is, whether it's nitpicking clips or just genuinely throughout the game, you can't say right now that one of these guys they're bringing in wouldn't be able to recreate that or maybe even play better. Like, it's a real conversation to be had. So
Yeah.
it's disappointing, honestly. Like, yeah, I guess it's nice to get some more depth in there because of Cleveland's situation, but it makes me just think about the whole year as a whole. And I think we're going to get to it, but really just a roster construction type of thing, and having these questions at all in general, where we're thinking, can a practice squad guy come in and replace a starting guard for us through 15 weeks now? It's a depressing feeling. And it's a genuine question, and it's totally a valid question from Heather. So rough topic, but also I guess it is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because we saw that rant of Shannon Sharp talking about Daniel Faalele, and he basically said, do they not have anyone else on this team? Because a high school guard would be better than him. So to Heather's point, he probably is better than Daniel Faalele. But to Sutton's point about Carl Lawson, it's almost not in the player's control whether they play or not, which is how it feels. Okay, one more comment before we get into the nitty gritty, just because I think it's interesting from DePlug. How y'all feel about the Ravens being put on Sunday Night Football against the 1 seed in the AFC? I feel kind of good about this because I was going to be busy all day on Sunday, and now I can watch the game. But maybe I wish I wasn't going to be able to watch the game. So this helps me out. But at the same time, you know, this could easily be a Ravens losing by 30, Patriots clinching the 1 seed, Ravens getting knocked out of the playoffs on Sunday Night Football. I don't feel great about it. But at the same time, if the Ravens, if the Ravens beat the Bengals this weekend, it could be, you know, finally some excitement here for us, even if we're not very confident going into it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this looks like a setup for an embarrassment ritual, to be honest with you. I mean, we already had to endure that pain on Thanksgiving night, you know, in front of the entire world, where every family in America is watching the game, and the Ravens look like that. So for me, I mean, that flex game that goes into the Sunday Night Football slot now, it's either going to be, again, like I said, an embarrassment ritual or a very, very triumphant victory. No in between. Literally no in between, just because of what's at stake right now. Like you said, we could be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, depending on what happens between now with our team, and then also with the Steelers as well, because, you know, we're jockeying for position for the division. So it's a setup for sure. It's going to be a lot of pressure on this Ravens team, I'm sure, to win that game. It's going to be a tough one, but I think the Ravens can pull it out. I mean, at this point, I can't confidently say anything about this team. Like, I can't confidently even go online and shit talk other fan bases like I'm normally able to during these seasons. I mean, at this point, let's talk about it. At this point in the season, us as Ravens fans, we're accustomed to making the argument about Lamar Jackson winning MVP. We're not trying to figure out, oh, well, if we win this game and the Steelers lose that game, maybe we can make the playoff. We're not doing that normally. We are 6-7. 6-7 in week 15. What is there to even get excited about anymore, right? And you know, it makes our jobs harder as content creators for the Ravens, because, like you said, Bradley, I mean, like there's like a lot of topics to talk about, but there's nothing to talk about at the same time. It's like, man, it's overall frustrating. I'll wrap this up by saying that I hope hope the Ravens can get a W on Sunday Night Football against the Patriots, because it would do a lot for my psyche, for my mental, personally.
I love that you said that, Sutton. It made me think about the whole season from going back to week 1, where Brad, you and I, after the pod, had a serious conversation of what's the year even mean anymore? The regular season, as long as you're good in the regular season, like we're, again, like Sutton said, accustomed to, the entire season looking up to the postseason is a big deal. It's what I guess the Chiefs are doing right now too, where they're just kind of sliding around and hopefully can make it in. But week 1, when you lose that, now going into week 15, 16 would be next week in a Sunday Night Football game, still must win kind of television for the Ravens. And we're looking forward to it in a way that's like, can we see any bit of life in this team? If the Ravens go out there and get, I'd say beat almost at all, I think it's nail in the coffin for Harbaugh. And it'll be interesting because it's a Vrabel kind of situation too. And that's, a little bit of rivalry and everything. It'll be a must-watch game, even if the Ravens are 6-8 by that week. But there's a lot of notes to take into that week because of many different situations. And I just really like that you brought that up, Sutton. It made me kind of, again, take a step back and think about the whole season as a whole and what our plans were going back to the preseason and hoping and thinking that this was a Super Bowl caliber team. And now seeing that we're maybe going to make the playoffs, and that's a big maybe.
Yeah. Maybe go 500. Maybe.
Yeah. Listening to the collective today, Bobby Trossett mentioned this is the first time since 2015 the Ravens will finish below 500 at M&T Bank Stadium. So,
wow,
not good. And it just is a testament to how bad the season has been. Comment from our guy, Brady Stauffer. I would love to hear all three of your opinions on the likely touchdown, the Rodgers tipped interception, and the call on the field goal attempt, and if that changes anything, but would love your guys' thoughts. I'll just go first real quick. Our subscribers obviously have not heard Sutton's thoughts on these issues. Likely touchdown. I think the rule is confusing. Does it look like a touchdown? Yes. Call it a touchdown. The Rodgers tip interception. He had control with his knee on the ground, but if that happened in the end zone, it would have been incomplete or an interception. But the fact that his knee's down, I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Teddy Buchanan is ripping the ball away from him. Rodgers is barely clutching onto that ball. And then the Travis Jones thing, I mean, the NFL admitted that they were wrong to John Harbaugh. So that's probably the worst one of them all. He did absolutely nothing wrong. And the Ravens would have won the game if one of the three of these, especially two of the three of these, went their way.
Agreed.
But Sutton, what were your thoughts on these three calls?
Well, I'll just go through them in order really quick. I mean, like you started with the Travis Jones one that the NFL has already walked back and apologized to the Baltimore Ravens for missing that one. That was a 4-point swing right there. The Ravens had just only allowed a field goal, and then after that call was made, it turned into a touchdown. So a 4-point swing right there. Totally unacceptable. I think that, if you're going to have replay assist in these dark, shadowy figures up in New York who can make these football godlike decisions in real time that impact these games, get the calls right 10 times out of 10, not like 6 or 7 times out of 10, because it really kills the integrity of the sport, and the product kind of gets watered down because you just never know exactly what you're going to get. And for it to be a multi-billion-dollar league, that's unacceptable. Second one, Aaron Rodgers went up, and here's the one where, I low key would agree with the call, the decision to be, for it to overturn the interception. I low key agree with the NFL replay assist the most on the second one, because when Aaron Rodgers, that ball got tipped, he went up, goes up, catches it high with his hands. He comes down with it, right? Not all the way, not before he goes to the ground, but I think he stomps around and maybe makes 1 or 2 to 3 steps. I'd have to go back and look at it, but if you go back and watch it in slow motion, once he notices his tip, he goes up, gets it, extends, comes down, stomps the ground, like taps his feet a couple of times, and then immediately goes to the ground once he realizes, hey, look, Teddy Buchanan, I know he doesn't know his name, right? But Teddy Buchanan is going to rip this ball out if I just try to stand up and try to wrestle it away from him. So let me panic, drop to my knees, so hopefully they blow the play dead. It was I guess you could say, a savvy move by Aaron Rodgers, but That one I would agree with a little bit more than the likely one, you
Sutton,
know?
real quick on that, the Aaron Rodgers one, just what I'm thinking about it is like if Teddy Buchanan would have swatted it instead of take it from him, I feel
Mhm.
like they would have called it incomplete. You know what I mean? Like if he swatted it out and the ball bounced on the ground. So it's just
Yeah,
really confusing.
yeah.
And I know the NFL struggled with this for a while, but those are sort of my thoughts on that. But you can go ahead.
Well, yeah, and my biggest gripe with these calls, because like I said, I mean, okay, maybe Aaron Rodgers did have possession of it enough to where, okay, when he goes and hits his knees, like they should blow it dead. But the problem is they called it an interception on the field, right? Which means the referee crew that the NFL entrusted to be there that day and call that game and make the right calls, they called it an interception. But then replay assists, again, the dark, shadowy figures, the football gods, for lack of better words, in New York, they decided to overturn that as if it was clear and obvious, which it wasn't. And the
Right.
rule of thumb is that we were promised as fans was that whatever call is made on the field is the call that's going to be deferred to upon further deliberation, right? Like if they're deliberating over it and you have to look at 80,000 different camera angles to see if you can overturn this, don't overturn it. It was called one way on the field. Keep it that way. At least that upholds some sort of integrity of the game. It has to be clear and obvious. Let's move on to the third one. Isaiah Likely catches that ball in the end zone midair, like has a strong grip over it, full control. One step, two steps. He's also already extending the ball away, warding off his defender, which is classified as a football move. What the rules analysts are trying to argue Ravens fans down about is the order of operations of a catch. And they're trying to say that you cannot establish a football move until after you've already caught the ball, established control, and got 2 feet down. And that's bullshit to me. That's bullshit to me because if you satisfy all three elements, you satisfy all three elements. It doesn't really matter the order of it. And even if you do want to say, okay, well, that's the rule, the order of it matters, he's still making a football move after he completes step A and B, the catch and the 2 feet. After that, the play should be over. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, you know? And this is something that really trips me out because we're saying that, okay, the officials who called it a touchdown on the field, they're wrong. Right. And when I say we're saying this, I mean the dark, shadowy figures again, I'm going to keep alluding to as the football gods in New York. This is what they're saying. The coaches, not the coaches, but the referees who called it a touchdown on the field, they're wrong. The guy who we pay, I'm sure, probably millions of dollars, Tony Romo, to communicate the game of football to millions of fans at home, he's wrong. Because Tony Romo also said, upon further review, like he looked at it in slow motion right next to Jim Nantz and say, yeah, Jim, that's going to stand. That's obviously a touchdown. So for them to come back and say, no, it's clear and obvious that it isn't, it insults pretty much everybody in the world's intelligence except anybody in that office. And that's my issue with it. It's just like, why are we having these inconsistencies? And honestly, you normally see like some get back calls in the NFL, right? If they took the Aaron Rodgers one away from us, you would think that they would at least give us that last one, but they took both of them from us. They overturned 2 calls that weren't clear and obvious to be overturned. It's disgusting to me. It feels more like a corporate move, and that's why I keep referring to these guys in dark shadowy figures who sit up in a room in suits, right? And I've said this on my show. I said this on the Ravens Roundtable earlier today. I'm going to bring it to you guys' audience as well. I was basically saying that if this is how we're going to do things, and New York is going to be able to make the final call on things, regardless of what the refs say in real time, the people who are there watching the living and breathing game in real time, then why not just eliminate refs as a whole, right? Expand the office in New York that you have, and basically have remote referees for every single game and just replay assist every single decision. At least that way we know it's consistent, right? We know it's coming from one source. You know what I mean? Like, and then just have security guards on the field just in case to break up fights or something like that. That's what it feels like. That's where it feels like the NFL may be going at this rate with how much control that they have over these games with these decisions. So I didn't agree with any of them. The Rodgers one, I can see how they got away with overturning that. I can see it, even though it wasn't clear and obvious. But the first one was egregious, so egregious that the NFL had to apologize. The third one is so egregious that pretty much everybody in the world, even Steelers fans, even analysts, professionals, referees, coaches are saying, like, what is a catch anymore? We got to do something. We have to be better. They have to be better, period.
We got a comment from Hussam. I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. Let me know if I did. I'm scared for the Bengals game this week. The Bengals looked incredible aside from the fourth quarter against the Bills. And while we looked great in the second half, will it be enough? Zach, early thoughts on the Bengals game.
It's nothing good. They took care of us. They put us to sleep, tucked us in when we played them. And last week, they had a great chance at beating the Bills. And Bro, I guess you can say Bro kicked himself. It was a couple of, flimsy turnovers that choked the game away. And I don't expect him to be doing that 2 weeks in a row. So doesn't make me feel very hopeful going into Cincinnati while this team is so down right now. Like, I wish I could be a fly on the wall to hear Harbaugh's message to the team and see the team's reaction anymore. What is the team thinking this week? I mean, any press conference you watch, it's kind of the same old. When we were winning 4 or 5 games in a row earlier, it was basically the same attitude as it is now. It's Harbaugh saying, yeah, I feel good about our guys. Run game was pretty good all in all. When we are all watching it with our own 2 eyes, knowing that this and that aren't being well addressed, aren't being taken care of, aren't being changed. The pass rush and O-line that are still the same situations we were talking about seasons ago, still being an issue. And it just sucks. It's hard to be very optimistic, I guess, going forward, because the Ravens are down on their luck, but the Bengals are playing with the, arrogant confidence that I think Jeff Zrebiec likes to talk about that the Ravens have. And the Bengals are taking that approach now with their season basically with house money.
Yeah, man. We will see how it goes. No Higgins and Hendrickson again, like we mentioned earlier in the show, but they didn't have those guys on Thanksgiving either. And the Ravens played pretty terrible. So we will see what happens. Obviously, Zach and I will have a preview out for that game Thursday evening. Okay, guys. Thank you, everyone, for the comments, by the way. Now we'll be getting into our first and maybe only topic of the night here. The Ravens have had a very disappointing season, guys. As a team that many predicted to go to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl, I predicted them to go 13-4. Zach predicted them to go 12-5. They have underperformed majorly. And there's a lot of talk about who is to blame. And I think there's a lot of people to blame. But, Zach, we'll go to you first here. What are your thoughts on sort of what went wrong this season and maybe why things went wrong this season?
Ooh. It hurts to bring this topic up because it's really not his fault. But whenever that Matabike injury happened, it felt like everyone got a slap to the face. And from then, noticing how the O-line play never got this step up that we were hoping for and needed to be an elite team and an elite offense. From then on, it's just been us in our sorrows about those situations, about the D-line being unable to take over a game and about the O-line not capable of making Derrick Henry an elite player, Lamar Jackson a very, very elite player anymore. And it's very depressing. Stuff that you could say is DeCosta's fault. I think he tried to address, whether that is a Dre Jones or I guess some O-line pieces here and there, practice squad guys, still trying to get people in the building. I think most of the blame has to go to someone like Harbaugh, because every week us fans can point out the issue, right? At one point, it did get addressed. The team did take a full turnaround. They turned the corner, as we said maybe, 5 weeks ago. And we've taken it a step too far. We've turned another corner, an ugly corner. And
did a full 360.
Basically. And, you're right back to where you started. It's an ugly football team, and I think someone's just going to have to pay. I don't think they're going to make someone like Lamar Jackson pay and move him out. That sounds ridiculous. I don't think they're going to move someone like Roquan, Ronnie Stanley, Derrick Henry, whoever that is, and to make a big change around here. That doesn't sound at all. So I think it starts with coaching and moving on from maybe just the coordinators, but maybe, possibly, probably Harbaugh.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about what is the main catalyst to the Ravens' struggles this season, I mean, you brought up Nnamdi Madubuike. That was a huge domino that really hurt this Ravens team once he went down, because all year this Ravens defense has not been able to generate pressure. Right, the run defense has been bad in spots, but it's been really good in other spots. But one constant is that this Ravens defense cannot, will not, refuses to, is allergic to quarterbacks, right? Mike Green, allergic to Aaron Rodgers, who he has a 20 years of youth on, right? Goes, there's a lot of different deficiencies, right? But one of the biggest things is losing Nnamdi Madubuike, a pass rusher who could rush the passer from the interior and also double as a dominant run stopper as well. Him next to Travis Jones was going to be an absolute force this season. So losing him in week 2, that was really bad. But I'll back it up just a week prior to that, week 1 against the Bills. I mean, the vibes were miraculously high in that game. You're going up against a team who, just knocked you out of the playoffs, just knocked you out of contendership the year prior or just months prior, right? And then week 1, you open up against them in their house, you start kicking their butt right out of the gate, and then they just kind of show you why they knocked you out of contendership last year. And it kind of forced a mental reset for every Ravens player and everybody in that building. And they kind of maybe second guessed themselves and started to think like, hey, do we belong? Like, are we actual contenders? Like, can we really beat the Bills or the Chiefs to make it to the Super Bowl? Or like, are we just like the little brother of the little brother in this kind of AFC situation that's going on right now? So I think the mental beat down that they took from losing that week 1 game, of course, Nnamdi Madubuike going down, and then you also have Zach Orr, who seems to not be able to start the season without training wheels, right? Like you kind of entrusted Zach Orr, okay, this is your defense. Go out there, show us what you got. Defense was god awful the first almost half of the season. And then we had to make an adjustment with Kyle Hamilton, and they got better, and they've continuously gotten better, especially with the pickup of Alohi Gilman. But that's the reason why we are where we are right now. Defense was playing like dog water for the first half of the season almost. One more reason I will say is just of course, the blocking. 72 and 77 are the bane of my existence currently right now. I mean, like you look at some of the all 22 film from the end zone angles, these guys are just getting run over. I mean, Daniel Falele is losing to all 3 levels of the defense, and he's losing to defensive tackles, he's losing to linebackers, he's losing to DBs, right? Guys who he has 200 plus pounds on. It doesn't look good, right? And then to put it all, a bow on it, this boils down to John Harbaugh, right? The number 1 rule of leadership is that it's always your fault when you're the leader. And like it seems like there is no level of accountability for John with this Ravens team, and he feels very, very comfortable right now. That's why he's able to not make adjustments to that offensive line. I mean, we see it clear as day. Zach, you brought it up earlier. Emory Jones. Why have we not seen this guy get more of an opportunity? We saw him get 16 snaps on Thanksgiving. I watched all 16 of those snaps and only focused on Emory Jones on each play. He maybe had 2 or 3 negative plays total. And that includes the one holding call that kind of killed one of the Ravens drives. I get that being like a reason why you want to call him, say he looks like a rookie and he's got a lot to work on. But if you can't coach a holding call out of a guard who it's his first professional game, on Thanksgiving, if you can't coach that out of him, says more about the coaching staff than it does about the player. I'll say that. And then, of course, Harbaugh also said, hey, look, man, the only way that, he looked like a rookie on Thanksgiving night, but the only way he's going to get better is if he gets reps, if he gets play time. Very following week, he gets 0 snaps. 0 snaps. So it's like his actions aren't matching his words. His words aren't matching the play on the field at all. And so I think at some point, if you're Steve Bisciotti, you got to say, hey, look, man, you're not getting it done. Eric has put together a decent roster around you. At the bare minimum, decent. You know what I mean? This roster has been more than good enough on multiple different occasions to get it done, to at least make a Super Bowl. Haven't done it, so it's either shit or get off the pot, man. You got to go, Harbaugh. I mean, that's what I say. It comes down to him. Fish rots from the head down. And if Steve Bisciotti can't realize that, then maybe he's the problem. There's a lot of systematic issues right now with the Ravens. So I just kind of went through all of it, going from the ground zero of the mentality losing to the Bills in week one and then losing Nnamdi Madubuike all the way up to the head coach and even the owner. It's just a multitude of issues right now. And that's why it's so frustrating to be a Ravens fan.
Sorry, Brad, before you go, just to talk about that Emory Jones point again. Last year, when you had to count on Roger Rosengarten being anyone on the O-line, you had to have it. Like, if you did not have Roger Rosengarten playing average or better, the season was screwed. This year, it feels kind of similar, where the guard is playing so bad. The guard play is that bad. You have an Emory Jones, and you're just choosing not to use it. And, Brad, we've talked about this just in text. But, like, the coaching, I guess, again, I'm going to use it, arrogance of saying Falele and Voorhees are the starters, end all be all. And seeing an Emory Jones play 16 snaps, and even if half of them were negative and half of them were good, that still feels like you might be improving. And still, to get a rookie out there that possibly is capable, why not keep taking the chance? The team building around something like that, seeing someone fully improve and join the roster, seeing improvement in the run game, pass pro, whatever. I think that would just be another uplifting story for a team that just needs one. And it's just aggravating to think that this could possibly be something where Monken or Harbaugh is saying, no, that starting guy is who I want. We're confident in that guy. Like they say every week, we're confident in these guys, blah, 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 blah. And no real change out of it. And we're talking about it in week 15.
Yeah. And real quick, Emory Jones is a 3rd-round pick, right? And we know how coveted the picks are to Eric DeCosta in this Ravens team.
Yeah.
So why are we hoarding so many picks? Why are we valuing these draft picks if we're not even going to use them once we draft these guys? It just doesn't make sense to me at all. But go ahead, Brad.
The Ravens, to me, feel like a stubborn organization right now. From not benching Falele, right? Zach and I talked about this. I feel like extending Mark Andrews is a stubborn move. I feel like that is being unwilling to change the tight end that you have had the last 7 years just because you don't want to try something new. You don't want to try a new number 1 tight end, even if he looks better and plays better and is more clutch than your number 1 tight end. That feels like another stubborn move to me, okay? And this is all based off of a team that was built around Lamar Jackson, who was drafted in a decision that is the complete opposite of being stubborn. You have had pocket passing quarterbacks for a very, very long time. Joe Flacco, Trent Dilfer, those guys. And they make a move when Joe Flacco is still the starting quarterback to go out and draft a quarterback that no one else wanted. And look how that worked out for you. And now they won't even take out a guard who everyone in the world knows is the worst guard in the NFL. It's just confusing to me, and I don't understand what is going on. And why I don't put 100% of the blame on Harbaugh is because I simply, and I was nicer about it when it happened, but I don't understand the Mark Andrews extension. Like, there's nothing anyone can say that is going to get me to understand it. I think, Sutton, you made a great Instagram reel right after the extension saying the Ravens have a complacency problem, or the Ravens have some weird fetish where they like to keep doing what they're doing. Okay?
Yeah.
Now that I got that out of the way, I today wrote down every single thing that has gone wrong this season, and I categorized it by whose fault it is. Okay? So we're going to go through this, guys, now. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we are going to start with the things that I would say are no one's fault. Blame it on the football gods. Blame it on injuries. There's nothing you can do about it, okay? Namni Madubuike getting injured. That is brutal.
Mhm.
Zach and I were in shambles when we not figured out what happened, but when we were starting to have an inkling of what this might be.
Yeah.
Marlon Humphrey's regression, I guess you could say. He still had some great moments. He just doesn't look as athletic as he did even last year. And maybe he's playing through something. I mean, he's playing with a broken hand, but he does look like he has a little bit less explosiveness than we're used to him having. No one's fault. Our Darius Washington's injury in May, no one's fault. The Tavius Robinson broken foot, no one's fault. And then also, I would say Derrick Henry's early season fumble problems. You don't put that on the coaching. You don't put that on the front office. Maybe the Ravens haven't been doing enough possession drills, ball carrying drills, but this is a guy that can do all that on his own. Like,
Hall of
he
Famer,
doesn't
yeah.
need that. So I would not put that on anyone. Those are the things that went wrong this season. I don't think you can blame anyone for those. Now we're going to get into coaching, Harbaugh's fault, because Harbaugh is the umbrella over the whole entire coaching staff. Number one, Sutton mentioned this, losing to Buffalo. Flat out, just the way that they lost to the Bills cannot happen. They were blowing out the team that brutally ended their season, the playoffs prior, and they were whooping them. I had a friend who was a Bills fan that was texting me in agony during that game. Couldn't believe how terrible the Bills were playing, and they lose, okay? That is a coaching problem that has happened so many times in the Harbaugh era. Number two, the inability to bounce back from the Buffalo loss. In the Baltimore Banner article, we read players talking about the fact that it put a dampen on the season. They felt like it was something they couldn't come back from. They felt like, I can't remember if it was Sutton or Zach that mentioned it, like questioning themselves. Are we a playoff team? Are we a true contender? We can't beat the Chiefs. We can't beat the Bills. It was like the final straw of struggling against the Bills and the Chiefs. And you need a voice, you need a motivator to let your guys know we still have 17 more weeks of the regular season. Just forget about it and go play your heart out, okay? Number three, I would put this on coaching. Rashad Bateman's season that he's having. We've seen a couple of issues from Bateman. The drop against Pittsburgh was really bad, but they're not using him the same way that they used him last year. He was awesome as a deep threat last year, ran a 4.39 40 at his pro day. And I don't know about you guys, I have not seen Rashad Bateman running too many deep routes this year. And he was amazing in that role last year, right? Another issue that I think is on the coaching staff, the Ravens team coming out flat the majority of games, right? They just don't look like they're playing with high effort. One of the games in my whole entire time of being a Ravens fan, and they lost this game, but the 2022 playoff game against Cincinnati when the Ravens had to start Tyler Huntley, that is one of the most motivated Ravens teams I have ever seen. They surprised me, shocked me by how hard-hitting they were, celebrating after every play, hype. Like, that performance, that was a proud performance, even though they lost. There was a 14-point swing on a fluky play. Another reason that I think you put on the coaching staff, Zach Orr struggles. I don't think Zach Orr is ready. You had Anthony Weaver, you had Denard Wilson, John Harbaugh chose Zach Orr. Both of those guys have been more successful than him. They could have been the defensive coordinator here the past 2 years. If the Ravens defense didn't really, really struggle in 2024 at the beginning of the year, they could have gone 15-2, 14-3, 16-1, had a 1 seed. That really hurt their season. And then the final thing that I would put on Harbaugh and the coaching staff is just looking like a poorly coached football team. The Steelers lost. They just, so many miscues, right? And I'm talking about penalties. Zach and I mentioned this sequence, Sutton. Wester returns the ball to like the Ravens zone 45 with 2 minutes left. They need a touchdown. There was a holding penalty on the return, and then on the very first play on offense, there's a holding penalty. It's like a 20-yard difference, and you only have one timeout in 2 minutes. So that is what I would blame on John Harbaugh. It's 6 things. That's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
What I'm going to do now is talk about what I think you can blame Eric DeCosta for in the front office, because I see a lot of people saying that, it's all John Harbaugh. Eric DeCosta deserves no blame. I'm not saying to fire Eric DeCosta, but these are things you have to think about. Number one, the failure to address the offensive line, right? I think this is the number one thing, for some people, the only thing that Ravens fans would put on Eric DeCosta. You cannot go into the season with Daniel Falele and Andrew Voorhees with no competition, right? The Ravens drafted Emory Jones knowing about his injury. We could give them the benefit of the doubt if they drafted Emory Jones and he was either hiding an injury or got injured in rookie minicamp. They knew about the injury and they drafted him anyway, and they didn't bring in any free agents to compete with Falele and Voorhees. They have been 2 of the worst guards in the NFL this year. Number 2 on EDC, I would say not enough proven players at edge. You get one injury, Tavius Robinson goes down, and Mike Green's playing 90% of snaps. He's a rookie second-round pick. That should not need to happen. And I think, honestly, that's probably been EDC's biggest issue since taking over as a whole, is the edge position not getting, that star pass rusher. And then number 3, for Eric DeCosta, I would say the failure to replace our Darius Washington before week 1. They drafted Malachi Starks before Ardarius tore his Achilles. They were drafting Malachi to be that number 3 safety, to not have to play a ton. Ardarius goes down. They didn't do anything. Like, there were so many guys you could sign in the offseason to play meaningful snaps. You could have traded for Alohi Gilman in May. You didn't have to wait till the trade deadline to trade for him. So that is what I would put on Eric DeCosta. And then 2 final things that I would put on the coaching staff and the front office, because I think it's hard to decipher Lamar's injuries, right? Because the O-line is a big reason why Lamar has been playing injured. And then also the coaching staff, right? John Harbaugh is responsible for Daniel Falele playing. He is the guy that's in charge of Daniel Falele starting and Andrew Voorhees starting. Eric DeCosta, at least I don't think, we don't know how these things work. I don't think Eric DeCosta can go in there and yell at Harbaugh, you need to bench Falele. And then 2 is Lamar's underperformance, right? Yes, he's been injured, but I think Lamar is an elite, one of the best quarterbacks we have ever seen in the history of football, when his O-line is average. And the Ravens should know that. Ravens fans know that. And the Ravens don't know that. And I think that's malpractice to not give him at least an average O-line. That is everything I had that went wrong this season. Harbaugh gets 6 things put on him. EDC gets 3. 2 get put on both of them. And 5 things get put on the football gods. How do you guys feel about that rant I just went on?
Well, I mean, I'll start by saying, when you bring up EDC and John Harbaugh and, them being the culprit behind the offensive line being the way it is, that's the kind of like the biggest one to me, because it's the basics here. The basics of this game is you have to be able to protect your quarterback or create running lanes for him to for your running back to run through, right? And that all starts with your offensive line. If you can't do that, your offense will be inept. On the defensive side, you got to be able to stop the run. You got to be able to get after the opposing team's quarterback. If you can't do that, your defense is going to be inept. And here's the thing, kind of sticking on the defense a little bit, and I guess this kind of leans more towards coaching, and where I have my biggest kind of indictments on John Harbaugh from the Steelers game. The Steelers came out in that game and started doing stuff that they haven't done all season long, right? First play of the game, deep ball to DK Metcalf. Did you know that was the first play of a 20-plus yard pass down the field from the Steelers in over a month? Up to that point? Like, and they hit 3 or 4 of those on us in that game. It was like their go-to, So, and I was talking to some of the guys about this earlier today on Ravens Roundtable. I was saying that, like, you can tell that Mike Tomlin is pound for pound a better coach than John Harbaugh, because it doesn't matter the circumstances. Tomlin will always have an answer, or the answer, the way to beat this John Harbaugh-led team. Think about it, guys. Teams have been beating the Steelers all season long, right? By too high shells, not letting Aaron Rodgers go deep, right? And just playing coverage and trusting that your rush of 4, maybe 5 guys can get after Aaron Rodgers just enough to make a mistake, whatever, throw it out of bounds, whatever. But the Ravens decide, and John Harbaugh ultimately decides, yeah, we want to game plan against the Steelers how we like to game plan against the Steelers, in the context of the Baltimore Ravens versus the Steelers rivalry, not within the context of what's actually going on in the season and what's actually schematically working against the Steelers offense and shutting them down. Like I said, they went a whole month without throwing a pass over 20 yards. They did it 4 times against us because we want to play them. John Harbaugh wants to win his way. Winning his way is more important than winning. That's what it feels like, and that's why I say, like, at the end of the day, this has got to be a Harbaugh thing. I mean, if you're Steve Bisciotti, I'm saying Harbaugh, you've had your time, you've had your opportunities. It's time for you to go, man. So I think that the biggest indictment is on the coaching. If we had to say whose fault it is, because like I said before, guys, EDC, he's put together some rosters that were more than good enough to make it, just unfortunately this year, and this is where a lot of people are kind of highlighting EDC, is that, like, Lamar Jackson's athleticism is not hiding the deficiencies of the offensive line, right? Because for so long, Lamar Jackson, I like to say, like, he was putting perfume on a pig when it comes to that O-line, right? Like, he's able to dance around, reset the pocket a bunch of times, create new pockets. This year, his injuries don't allow him to do that. And Eric DeCosta is getting exposed for having a less than average, way below average offensive line. So the main things to me: coaching, general managing, everything else.
Yeah, again, I guess I'm really thinking about the past right now, because going back to week 3 or 4, we had a friend of the program, DK, on, and he talked about, we asked him a question about, we probably talked about this with Sutton too, but asking him, what is the mark in which Harbaugh has to get fired?
Yeah.
And it was stuff we can't even imagine right now. It was,
yeah.
We were thinking, okay, yeah, AFC Championship, lose that. Yeah, I think you still let go of them. Talk about the reality check. I mean, look at us now. Total 180. Go back to 360 earlier. That's funny.
but Zach, the problem is that, like, you're always going to be able to shoot John Harbaugh some bail in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's Lamar Jackson throwing a bad interception, that takes blame, that shifts blame away from John Harbaugh, right? When the NFL makes some very questionable calls, that shifts blame subtly away from John Harbaugh. When Lamar Jackson misses 3-4 games at a time, that subtly shifts blame away from John Harbaugh. So I think that, all in all, whenever they have their exit interviews, I don't know if John Harbaugh does this with the owner, Steve Bisciotti, and asking them, how did you feel like the season went, right? Harbaugh is going to basically be able to say, yeah, ball just didn't bounce our way a couple of times. Like we mentioned, injuries here, bad calls there, you know what I mean? And just overall, some players didn't execute where they were supposed to execute. You're going to be able to shoot John Harbaugh some bail. So I think he's here for the long run. I think he's going to coach throughout this entire 3-year extension. Maybe after the 3-year extension, which will be 2 years after this year, maybe then they'll amicably part ways if the Ravens still have not gotten a Super Bowl championship. But I think Harbaugh's here to stay, and that Mark Andrews extension is indicative of that. It's indicative of a franchise, like we said, very stubborn, wants to double down, rest on his laurels, and here you are, complacency.
And I haven't really, I guess, thought about the extension with it too. But even last week, the noise of a 32-14 loss, and how much of it still wasn't on the fact, the Ravens 5 turnovers, blah, blah, blah. The fan base was still honed in on Harbaugh. I think the noise is just really loud with him. And that's what puzzles me, because I think the media hasn't fully grasped that kind of discussion yet, where if it's Harbaugh or just mostly, I guess, for them, Lamar, his O-line, whatever it is. It's slowly crept in over time because I guess they've started to learn about the O-line with Sharp and everyone like that talking about it. But it's very interesting to talk about what it would take to see a change at head coach. Because if it's a very honest take, I totally agree with you, Sutton. I think that the organization is just very arrogant, and I think they would do that. I totally could see them saying, Harbaugh, we're going to write it out, especially with the Andrews extension. And I think that's heartbreaking as a fan. And I think that you can totally feel that way and being upset about it. But stuff that factors in, like not being 500 at home, games that when you bring the season, I guess, around the corner, like I talked about earlier, where you go from 1-5 to a 5-5 team, 6-5, whatever it was. And still fans, I'd say most media, high thinking media guys are looking at the Ravens and saying, are we sure they're legit yet? Are they anything special? And now going back to what you said earlier, Sutton, of saying, yeah, I think the whole team is doubting it now. I think the only way to bring in this new blood and a new mindset with this team is to literally have a brand new message. And I think that comes from a leader like we've been discussing, where you have to have a new face to command this room now. Maybe every week, we're not there. We can't say this. Maybe every week Harbaugh does have them fully cooking. Maybe there is something about like this team is just not operating, executing, something like that. Maybe the team missing a Matabike, not having good O-line play is the issue. But with how much the fan base is harping on it, it feels like it's becoming almost too obvious, right? If you were to, I can't see them losing out, but if you end the season with just 6 wins, how in the world do you not think about seeing Harbaugh out the door? I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I agree. And my closing statement, the where I categorized all of the issues, my closing statement to that is we don't know who is responsible for what truly. But I think most people would agree with the way I categorized those things. And Harbaugh was responsible for most of those things. Yes, you can blame EDC some. Howie Roseman, some people say he's the best GM ever. He's definitely the best GM in the NFL right now. The Eagles roster has holes. GMs are not perfect. So I think it's tough to put blame on a GM. I just do. Unless they're making terrible moves left and right.
I wanted to ask Sutton this because, Brad, we talked about it maybe off air, of a question with a new coach. Sutton, if we were to get a new guy with, let's say DaCosta gets us a roster that looks just on good, just paper, just looking just as good on paper as it was to begin the year, and you have a new face, you think they could do worse than what they're doing right now? Like a new face feels like it can't get any worse than this, right?
Yeah.
Yes and no. I mean, I think with a brand new coach, there could be some potential growing pains, and the Ravens valuing continuity makes sense to an extent because when you're in the middle of a Super Bowl window, you want to make sure that things are flowing as smoothly as possible. Now, what I will say, and I say that meaning that maybe it just wasn't a good idea to fire John Harbaugh mid-season, to pull the trigger mid-season. But if the Ravens end up missing the playoffs, you guys all know what Black Monday is, right? The day right after the last game of the regular season, where a bunch of coaches get fired. I think that the Ravens would have to make the conscious decision to go ahead and let go of John Harbaugh right then and there.
Yeah.
And then immediately bring in a new guy and have an entire offseason to kind of get him ingratiated into the system and things like that. And with Lamar and the offense, all those sort of things. And then I think that they could probably hit the ground running. Yes. But it really just comes down to the message. I think back to Tracy Wolfson, CBS sideline reporter talking about how on the sideline there were multiple Ravens offensive players who were frustrated. We don't know exactly who said what, but we know it involved Lamar Jackson, Daniel Fa'alele, and Zay Flowers, all offensive players, right? And somebody was yelling, hey, like, they know exactly what we're gonna do. This shit ain't working. You know, they were saying things to the effect of that, right? And I guarantee you they're not talking to Zach Orr because they don't play defense. I guarantee you they're not talking to Todd Monken because he sits way up in the box. Nobody can hear the players on the field. And so the only person that those comments could be directed to, directly or indirectly, and the only person within earshot would be John Harbaugh, who would be responsible. So it's like, I think that this Ravens team has hit a crossroads where the guys in the locker room, I feel like John Harbaugh has lost the locker room. I don't know if you guys saw that Reddit rumor post last week that came out with the ex-girlfriend or whatever. But that stuff makes sense. It sounds like it's like it adds up. You know what I mean? Like saying that Lamar Jackson and most others have wanted Harbaugh gone for a long time, and multiple phone calls have been overheard about this same sort of topic. Like it adds up, because right now it doesn't seem like John Harbaugh has any control over the locker room, which is why, Zach, then I definitely think that they would do better. They would definitely 100% benefit from having a newer, fresher voice in that locker room.
Jake Luke from the Exit 52 podcast made a great point about that Reddit post, defending that it's most likely real because of the last 2 points of it, basically talking about player sneak out, and what was the other one? I can't even remember.
Players sneak out, and
and the offseason surgeries.
Yeah, secret surgeries. Yeah.
So Jake Luke made a great point that us three, not your average football fan, but guys that are sickos like us, those two things, we already know that those happen. Okay? So this is clearly a person that doesn't know that much, that thought she was breaking news with those final 2 points.
Yeah.
Well, all 4 points. So like that just tells you that like she was telling the truth, because like those are true statements that she thought were kind of radical and
like bombshells.
Yeah. And guys like us know that the off-season secret surgeries and NFL players sneaking out of hotels for women, whatever, that's very common. So I thought that was a great point from Jake Luke from the Exit 52 podcast.
That is.
Go subscribe to them. Okay, a couple things I wanted to mention. Sutton, Zach and I had one of my great friends, Henry, on, who's a Steelers fan, for our preview last week. We always do like an hour and a half preview with him because we have a bunch of great thoughts. And, I've been roommates with him for 3 years. He always talks about, the Ravens were 0-2 last year. He was like rooting for the Ravens because he didn't want us to do too bad and fire Harbaugh. And this year, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, we were talking about Zach. Henry basically said, and guys, this is a Steelers fan talking.
Yep.
Henry said that, if the Ravens fire Harbaugh and get a new coach, you have a Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen. It can't get much worse. I mean, you look at Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, and Lamar. Like, if you put a terrible coach in front of them, they're probably going 500 with a decent roster. So, and the Ravens are maybe finished below 500 this year. So that's another thing to think about. And back to the conversation about what is going through Steve Bisciotti's mind. Shout out to my dad for this, because he's obviously older than us. And I think I was trying to get perspective on from him about what maybe an owner is thinking right now. Maybe, a middle-aged man is thinking. Steve Bisciotti, and probably all NFL owners, most likely care more about the fans in the seats than whether they're winning or not. And listen, Steve Bisciotti definitely wants to win. But we've seen this season, the fans in the seats, it's gone down. And Jeff Zrebeck mentioned on The Collective today that it was pretty dead before the Steelers game. And if the Ravens go to Cincinnati and lose on Sunday, and then the Patriots come to town, Baltimore, Sunday Night Football, and it's half empty at kickoff, Steve Bisciotti is not going to like that. And that's going to, I think Steve Bisciotti has had thoughts already. I really do. And if this season goes downhill, Zach mentioned lose out, maybe just finished 1-3 in the last 4. It's going to be ugly, these final 2 home games. And that's something to think about as well. And listen, I guess I wouldn't say I'm putting my faith in Steve Bisciotti, but like he was going to fire John Harbaugh in 2018 if the Ravens didn't make the playoffs. Like that was out there. I think he even admitted to it kind of in a joking way later that offseason when he actually still talked to reporters. So like he's aware, right? And I think he's got to be thinking, I'm not going to have a quarterback like this ever again in my life. Probably Zach and Sutton's life, we're not going to see a quarterback this great again on the Ravens. And he's got to be thinking, maybe is it time to just try a new coach? Because how much worse can it get? There was a comment from, who was it? It might have been Heather. I can't find it. Asking about like who we would like.
Oh yeah,
it's a possible new candidate. I've been talking about Clint Kubiak this whole entire time. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, Sutton. If the Ravens were to fire John Harbaugh and hire a Jesse Minter, I think it's Mike Shula for the Rams, I would be 1% happier than if they just kept John Harbaugh. I do not think in this day and age it is a smart thing to do to have a defensive head coach for your football team. On top of that, Lamar Jackson has had inconsistency from his play callers his whole career. He's had 3 play callers, okay? And to have a head coach that's, not even a defensive guy. Like Harbaugh is a special teams coordinator. He can't even have a defensive perspective and give Lamar pointers, right? But, in terms of having an offensive coach, and we're probably going to talk about this a lot more down the line, so these are kind of just my first thoughts around this situation. I want Lamar to have a guy that is in charge of this team, and that guy's number one priority is making sure Lamar Jackson plays as well as he can play. I want Lamar Jackson to have the same play caller until he retires. I want that play caller to be on the field talking to Lamar Jackson in between quarters, during timeouts. And if you have a defensive head coach, that is not going to happen. I was talking to Zach and I's guy, Justin, the Ravens Hub, on Instagram about this because he likes Shula from LA. And I said, and he also was talking about McDonald, and I said, I am not that mad about Mike McDonald leaving because of how strongly I feel about this thing, having an offensive coach. And he mentioned, well, Mike McDonald hired Clint Kubiak. Look how that's going for him.
That's true.
Yeah, Sam Darnold's going to have Clint Kubiak for 1 year. He's going to get hired. And then they're going to have to try to find a new offensive coordinator, and there's no consistency. So that was a really long ramble. But Sutton, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in terms of a possible coaching search.
I think you make some really valid points about, having an offensive-minded head coach, because right now, we know that the game of football comes down to 3 things. Like, it's a numbers game, it's an angles game, and it's a players game. It's either you have the numbers to give you an advantage, you can create the angles to give you an advantage, and that comes with a brilliant-minded offensive coordinator, or you have the players who can just make you right when the team is wrong, right? And right now, I feel like we're lacking a lot of creativity and continuity on offense. There was a 3rd and 2, and I see you guys super chat donation. We'll get to that in a second. I'll make this quick. There was a 3rd and 2 where the Ravens had to have it. It was late in the game. They're within the 10-yard line, I want to say. And there was miscommunication, according to John Harbaugh, between upstairs Todd Monken and getting the play call down onto the field. So they basically just ran what the hell ever, and it looked like it on the play, and that ended up being a loss of 2 in a crucial moment, and we had to get a touchdown there. And things like that are just unacceptable. So I would definitely want a more hands-on, offensive-minded coach, because that's where the league is going. The league wants offense. The league's rules quite literally favor the offense, other than that Isaiah Likely overturned touchdown, right? But it just makes sense. It just makes sense to have an offensive minded head coach in the Big 2025. Outside of that, though, I disagreed with your point about not wanting Mike McDonald. I do know that Mike McDonald is a defensive coach, but he is a younger guy with a little bit more of like a bravado, and he has more, just relatability to the players to him. And I feel like he's on top of having a great mind. So here's the way I look at it. You either have to have a brilliant offensive mind, or you have to be one of the guys. You know what I mean? And John Harbaugh doesn't really satisfy either of those. He doesn't check either of those boxes. Like, again, he's a CEO head coach whose specialty is special teams, right? And special teams did not look good this past week. So I don't know where, Tyler Loop is still kicking the ball out of bounds, not landing in the landing zone. This has happened 4 or 5 times this year. And you're supposed to be the special teams guy. Harbaugh, at least get that together. But he doesn't have the offensive mindset. He also isn't a guy who can just go into the locker room and just like totally hype up and galvanize a group of 20-something-year-old jacked men, you know what I'm saying, who are going out there and hitting each other for a living. He just doesn't have that. He doesn't have that level of alpha in him. So it's either you're going to be a Sean McVay, right? Or a Kyle Shanahan who can make any backup look great, right? Or you're going to be a Mike Vrabel. You're going to be a guy. You're going to be a Dan Campbell. You're going to be a guy, you know what I mean, who can really like rally the troops. Harbaugh does not have either one of those qualities. So if the Ravens do bring in a new guy, I don't want to speculate on exactly which names, but you got to have one of those things. Either be a dude or be a what is it called? Be brilliant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
that's what it is.
Sutton, to your point, most of the great coaches in the NFL are both of those things.
Yeah.
And you were talking about, which I agree with, Harbaugh's neither of them. Dan Campbell, right? Probably the most rah-rah guy in the NFL right now. Can get the Lions hyped for anything. I mean, he cries when he gives pregame and postgame speeches. Their play calling's bad. He takes over. He's wearing his glasses. He's writing on a sheet. They're scoring 35 points a game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Sean McVay is running up and down the sideline, yelling at people. We all know the mind that he has as a play caller. He can get his team fired up, right? There are guys that are both of those. And we have a coach that is neither of them. So, great point from Sutton, and that's just something I wanted to add to it. Zach, I really want to get to this super chat. Was there anything else you wanted to add to the coaching conversation, Mad Roster? We will get to that, though.
Yeah, it feels like someone maybe to throw their name in the hat is someone like Brian Flores and maybe a leader type. Like, again, it's defensive, so I'm with you guys. I wouldn't choose to go that route. I would want offensive more, but just wanted to add him in there because that's a big name with, I think, the fan base right now.
Yeah, agree there. Mad Rasta, sorry for waiting so long, but we had to get that out. Life has been better not watching this team. They find new ways to disappoint every week. Lamar needs to improve as a leader. Any adversity, Ravens crumble. Zach, what are your thoughts on this?
The biggest sentence to me is Lamar needs to improve as a leader. And when you're talking about teams as in, or coaches, I guess, as in a guy, I think sometimes a quarterback is able to do that, especially when they're a premier guy in the league. Again, I'm not here to bash on Lamar Jackson. I just think that there's probably a step he could take as in commanding the room that we don't get to hear about either. So maybe this year he has been vocal in meetings and told guys, I guess on the sideline too, you're doing this wrong. You're doing this bad. Maybe he can improve in that where we have to see it week to week, maybe as soon as this upcoming week, or else the season is totally in the trash. So I wish I did see Lamar Jackson go out there and be a little more vocal as in his team. When you see him, it's a very humble thing to do, and it's a very personal thing for him to do. But whenever he would get upset in a game and this, I guess, patent kind of throwing his helmet down in anger, sometimes when I see a video of Peyton Manning going up and screaming at his center, I'm like, dude, that would be so much fun to have as your quarterback. Like, there's no way anything bad gets past that guy. So I wish there was a level of that kind of champion mindset of knowing that and commanding a team like he has every ability to, as in a resume. So I do think that life is kind of better if you don't watch the Ravens right now, and that goes back to something where Brad is saying with Bisciotti and losing interest from the fans.
I think the biggest reason why you don't see Lamar Jackson kind of acting like a leader is because you think about all of Lamar Jackson's life playing football, his sheer talent alone has been able to elevate his teams to higher heights. You know what I mean? And now at the highest level in the NFL, and where it's truly a team sport, right? Sometimes his heroics and his athleticism and his natural God-given talents and abilities aren't enough to will the Ravens to a Super Bowl. I mean, you saw what he said the day that he got drafted, said they're going to get a Super Bowl out of me. You know, little did he know the NFL is a totally different animal. Every cog in this machine has to be working damn near perfectly in order for you to make it to the pinnacle, the zenith of this sport, you know? And so I said this earlier today on the Ravens Roundup. I said that, it feels like right now, because you think about when Lamar Jackson first came into the league, he was pretty much John Harbaugh's baby. You know what I mean? John Harbaugh was looking at Lamar Jackson like, oh my gosh, I was in a really dark place before you came. I'm so grateful for you. You give me purpose on this team, right? And Lamar Jackson was just this happy-go-lucky golden retriever of a quarterback in the locker room, in the media, happy to be here. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. To the media, all the things, right? Happy to be here. Fast forward 8 years later, Lamar Jackson is no longer in the baby infant stages of his career. He's more so now in the rebellious teenager stage where he's starting to not really talk to John Harbaugh on the sidelines all that often. You don't see them hugging it out on the sidelines and really consulting each other on, okay, what should we do here? And it's a lot less of that and a lot more of Lamar Jackson walking over to the sideline, taking off his helmet and slamming it into the bench or the ground. You know, you're getting more of that rebellion now. So it's just like, I think that Lamar, he's never really been a natural born, like rah-rah type of leader guy. He's more so like, look, I'm just going to lead by example. You guys can hop in my backpack and help me out or not, but like, I'm going to try to do the best I can to will this team to victory. And sometimes that doesn't always work. It's just not in his bag to be that leader. And he shouldn't have to. Much to our points here that we talked about in the last segment, your coach is supposed to be able to do that. And if you're going to be the CEO coach who isn't a master of offense, who isn't a master of defense, and obviously barely a master of special teams, you got to be able to lead these guys, right? Take some motivational speaking classes, get in the weight room, get a little more jacked Harbaugh. I mean, Harbaugh's like what, 70 now, like almost 70, probably mid 60s. I don't know. I don't know
He's
how
63,
jacked.
I think.
He's 63. That's 2 years younger than Steve Bisciotti, if I'm not mistaken. How old is Steve Bisciotti? I looked it up earlier. It said 65, but that can't be right.
Oh my
That
gosh.
can't be right.
It says he's 65, April 10th,
That can't be right.
1960.
Oh yeah,
He's
April
only got
10th.
2 years on Harbaugh? That is insane. That's crazy to me. But no, I mean, I say all that to say, man, I just don't think Lamar Jackson's a natural born, like, again, rah-rah, rally the troops type of leader. Just by like his nature, he's not. But he shouldn't have to be. You should have a coach who's going to be able to take the reins in that department and fire his guys up and reel his guys back in when need be. But it doesn't seem like John Harbaugh can do any of that. All we get is the stupid Harb's face on the sideline, and everybody else play kind of reflects that. So that's where I'm at with it.
One thing I will say about Lamar as a leader is the Hard Knocks from the Bills playoff game after the Andrews fumble. Lamar goes up to him on the sideline think about how stressful that moment is. There's 5 or 6 minutes left on the clock. The Bills have the ball. If the Bills score a touchdown, your season's over. It's snowing. He goes up to Mark Andrews and he says, like, you're all good. Forget about it. We need you. Like, we need you when we get the ball back. And I understand that is like, a decent amount of quarterbacks would do that, but, a lot of quarterbacks would not. And that is something that I think Lamar has in his pocket. And I think it's tough to be that guy when you are not having the season you want to have, when the team is not having the season they want to have, when you're losing over and over again. I just think all those things combined can sort of take away from the drive to be that leader. Lamar was having the best year of his career. the Ravens were having a great season. I think there's just more motivation there to do that, and we haven't seen that as much this year. Another super chat for Mad Rasta. We really appreciate you, Mad Rasta. He has
Appreciate
300
you.
million. He can take leadership classes, etc. We see trading teams beat KC and Bills, but Ravens make some dumb mistakes.
There's a weird feeling. Maybe it's like maybe I've been watching too many movies. There's a message I think lately that I've resonated with where
trash teams. Sorry, he
we see trash teams beating. Yeah, yeah. Even then, I lost my thought. Being a leader, like you almost have to be born with it to do the Peyton Manning stuff that I was talking about. So I think it's honestly a little unfair to me to compare that and hope that Lamar can become that type of person. With teams like KC and the Bills, it feels like their coaching situation is never really, really in question. Andy Reid is having one of the worst years, I guess, under Patrick Mahomes, maybe the worst year under Patrick Mahomes. It's not a discussion if Andy Reid is coming back next year. McDermott, I guess, in the same boat, but I think the Bills are doing pretty good. 9-4, some respectable, definitely. And I think the Ravens are just a different kind of discussion. And I like to think about in coaching with really the mindset of coaching in modern sports, whether that be NBA. I think of the Raptors firing, I think it was Dwayne Casey about a year or so after winning the NBA Finals, winning the whole thing. The Giants, just this season, see Jackson Dart finally as a leader of a quarterback, the future of their team. And I think, maybe Dable's job is saved, because that kind of is this whole mentality we went through with Harbaugh, and they cut him loose. Like it's very interesting how the Ravens, maybe it goes to a Bisciotti as well, as we're doing it our way. This is a closed circle family affair now. And
yes,
whatever the rest of the modern sports, I'm talking about sports now in general, not just football, as in coaches, how that usually changes with the rest of the league. If 1 or maybe 2, maybe 1.5 years of bad sports is played, they cut them loose. And this would be the first time that they've just been a genuinely bad team fully throughout the regular season. And I don't know how much more evidence you can give to get rid of someone like Harbaugh. I turned this into a Harbaugh question, but also, I can't ask of Lamar Jackson to be a next level leader in a snap as well.
Yeah, and it feels like, really quick, it feels like talking about Steve Bisciotti. It feels like to me, to you guys' point earlier, butts are in seats for the most part for the Ravens. And not only that, I mean, jerseys are still being bought, merchandise is still being sold, right? And, when Steve Bisciotti goes to these owners' meetings, he's not flat out embarrassed because his team is a dumpster fire. The Ravens are a very respectable organization who are selling tickets and making money. I'm sure they're in the black or in the green, however you want to call it. Mm-hmm. So, I think that winning a Super Bowl, while it'd be nice, is kind of like an elective option, right? It's not like the end all be all if the Ravens do not win a Super Bowl, right? As long as, the team is making money, and me, Steve Bisciotti, is not embarrassed when I go and see these other owners that I got to bump shoulders with every now and then. I'm cool. I hired Harbaugh under my own volition 18 years ago. He's my guy. I'm not going to just move off of him. We saw him and Harbaugh bumping shoulders just this past offseason, doing an interview for Ravens media. And Steve Bisciotti's talking he loves Harbaugh like a son, even though they're only 2 years apart. I'm just finding that out. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But he certainly looks like Steve Bisciotti could be, I don't want to say his dad, but definitely older than John Harbaugh. That's for sure. But that's another story for another day. But no, man, it comes back to Steve. And if he was getting ready to fire John Harbaugh in 2017 or 2018, and he sees all the success the Ravens have had since then, and he doesn't recognize that a lot of that success, 90% of that success, has come from Lamar Jackson and what he's been able to do, then I just think we have to curb our expectations for the future. I'll just say that we have to curb our expectations because we have an owner who just clearly doesn't see the problem at hand right now.
Yeah, I agree, man. Every time Sutton comes on this podcast, we talk for 3 hours. And it happened again tonight. Do either of
All
you have
good.
any final thoughts?
I mean, for me, I started the episode by saying that I don't have a lot of faith in this 2025 Ravens team to make the playoffs, only because, I mean, you got 4 games left. The Ravens are still in control of their own destiny, as well as it may seem, but I just don't know if going up against a Joe Burrow, Drake May, Jordan Love, and Aaron Rodgers, these are all competent quarterbacks. We have not proven to be able to beat competent quarterbacks and hold them down for 4 quarters, or at least 3 quarters even. Um, so with that being said, I don't want to say on to next season. I don't want to say that just yet, guys. I don't. But that's what it certainly feels like with the vibe of this team right now. Every week I keep thinking like, okay, this is the week that they finally turn it on. Lamar Jackson throws for 4 or 5 touchdowns. The defense forces 2-3 turnovers, and we just dominate, right? But every week they're kind of proving to me like, no, this is who we are this year. No, Sutton, this is really who we are this year. Like, next week against the Bengals, worst defense in the league, that you're gonna find out this is really who we are. We suck. We're not that great. That's just what it boils down to. But I'm not totally giving up hope. I'm not totally punting on the season. If they can put together, this next game is going to be huge. I mean, this is it right here against the Bengals. If you lose against the Bengals on Sunday, I think everything just unravels. Everything unravels.
Oh, it's going to get ugly.
Everything. So if they can win this game, I think they're, and funny, Nick Wright said this last week about his Chiefs. And I'm going to say it right now about our Ravens. I think the Ravens are a win away from being a win away to actually being taken serious again. So basically, you got to stack 2 wins, and then we can talk. Maybe I'll come back. We can come back on the pod, and we can talk it out after that. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds good to me. One last super chat from Mad Rasta Zay, and the rest of wide receivers stink, he says.
Brad, we talked about this. You sent me a screenshot.
Zay, yeah.
Oh, you were going to say it. Yeah. The stats, right?
Zay Flowers is 7th in the NFL in receiving yards for wide receivers, and he has ran the 21st most routes. Zay Flowers is having a very good season.
Yeah.
Everyone else is not. I think there was a tweet that I sent Zach, so I'm going to find it real quick. Zay Flowers has 891 yards this year. The next guy is Mark Andrews with 341. So
read the rest of them. Do you have the rest of them?
Yeah. So Zach Flowers, 891. Andrews, 341. Hopkins, 257. Likely 248. Bateman, 217. So to Matt Ross's point, I would disagree about Zay. Zay is having an awesome season. He is top 10 in receiving yards and not even top 20 in routes ran. Other than that, we've seen a lot of underperforming players.
Well, hold on now, because Zay Flowers, while we're on the topic, I almost made it through a whole entire podcast without talking about Zay Flowers. I did. But at the very end, I came so close, but I got to talk about it. Because you mentioned, Bradley, I mean, the yardage, the receiving yards, which is great. Love it. However, we also have to acknowledge, while we're bringing up stats, he's got more fumbles than touchdowns this season.
Yeah.
And that is a glaring issue. And I brought this up to my audience. I think last week we got into a heated debate, me, Alex, and Jason from Huddle It Up Films. And I was saying, like, it's not crazy to say, and this is going to be the hottest of all hot takes.
Uh-oh.
But I'm saying this to kind of wake it up in the community on what Zay Flowers really is. It's not crazy to say that a guy like Jordan Addison, drafted in the same draft class, you could call him better than Zay Flowers. Why? He's got double the amount of touchdowns. You could say, oh, well, he's getting single coverage because of Justin Jefferson on the other side. I don't want to hear that. This Ravens offense has all of the weapons to threaten in the world. Zay Flowers has left touchdowns on the field. He's left yards on the field just with his play style. He's a smaller receiver that plays like a smaller receiver, right? Not like a Steve Smith Sr., who we know is a one of one, who was smaller, yes, but he played bigger, right? And that allowed him to take the top off of defenses, be physical, score touchdowns, and get his offense off the field. That is the most valuable thing that a number 1 wide receiver can do to me. is get his offense off of the field, right? Leave without a shadow of a doubt that we're going to score 6 points on this drive. Put it back into the defense's hands, right? He just doesn't do that. I mean, you saw the play, 3 minutes to go, need to have a touchdown to take the lead, right? He makes a big play down the field, doesn't score, we end up kicking a field goal, right? What's the point of having these big yardage, like, oh my gosh, Zay Flowers plays if he's not going to end up scoring ever, right? And then you still put the onus on the offense to go ahead and punch it in from the red zone where they've been struggling all season long. I'm just saying, like, the Ravens do not have a actual wide receiver one, in my opinion.
I agree.
I think Zay Flowers is a high-end wide receiver two that we treat and we target like a wide receiver one. I'll just say that.
Yeah. I think Zay as a 2 would be like, if you had Zay as a 2, that means you have a very good number 1. And I think if you had Zay as a 2, he would be talked about as like that duo would be like the 4th best duo, the 3rd best duo. So like he is a very, very good number 2. But I agree with you, Sutton. He almost has like the opposite of like a nose for the end zone somehow. But yeah.
The numbers that you said with just the yardage
mm-hmm.
and how we were talking about coaching so much, it feels like there's always a second guy that we were leaning on throughout the last couple of years. And this year, there's no one.
There's no one.
It's just interesting. It makes me think about if it's a Monken philosophy, if it's going back to very early on, and we were talking about how, okay, just get short yardage game going offensively, pass-wise, and then it'll hopefully open up the deep plays. That might be a thing where D-Hop and Bateman were supposed to be contributing more because of the deep plays, and now they're taken away and maybe not given the best opportunity to succeed. It's a very stacked question. It even goes to what Sutton was saying about Zay. I think is a very deep conversation. I think Brad, you and me talked about it a little, about if Zay Flowers and an extension is going to be in the books or not. Just that fumble stat, that made me think that's not going to happen. That's a very serious topic.
One more thing. I absolutely hate and don't understand the way they're using Bateman this year. I talked about it earlier. Ignore the drop against Pittsburgh. Bateman is a great route runner. And honestly, I think he's pretty good after the catch too. And I swear, when is a play designed for Rashad Bateman? Like, have you seen one this year?
Yeah, like they really don't target him all that often. Like most of the passing plays are flowing towards the side of the field, whichever side of the field Zay Flowers or Mark Andrews is on. Yeah. So by the time that Lamar Jackson is even able to make it to the read in his progression of Rashad Bateman, with this offensive line, he doesn't really have time to do that or get him a good ball. Mm-hmm. So it's like it sucks, but I wish he was more involved. I do.
With the mm-hmm. route runner that Bateman is, I think him being the number 1 option on a lot of plays would be a good idea.
Yeah.
So I don't get it.
Plus, get him into a rhythm. Like, I feel like he's dropping these easy passes because he has no rhythm at all.
Exactly.
He's running 90% of his routes not expecting the ball. So it all sucks.
Yeah. But yeah, you guys keep leaving great comments and we aren't able to finish the pod, but I think finally we're going to wrap it up here. I'm going to try to give some shout outs. Zach, you also just shout out names that you can think of.
I'm going to
the plug, Heather, Hussam, Brady Stauffer was in here. Living Legend.
The plug, Heather, Hussam. Yeah.
Mad Rasta. Nicole Whitaker. Killa BZ too. Eric Johnson.
Oh, you caught up. Killa.
Prime Trust was in here.
Nicole. Mad Rasta, big shout out. Dawson Hess was in here.
C-Ron Addict. Okay, I think we got most people.
Nice.
Appreciate you guys for being here tonight. Sutton, we really appreciate you for joining us for 90 minutes once again. Apologize for that.
Oh, good. It's funny. This is actually my 3rd show of the day. I did a show for PRP earlier. That was about an hour. I did a show, Ravens Roundup with Coach Evans. That was about an hour. And this one's about an hour and a half. So I'm coming up on 4 hours of streaming today.
This man's some rest.
I wouldn't have it any other way, man. I love doing this.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on. I genuinely feel like we always have the best conversations when you are on the pod. Everyone, if you're not subscribed to the Purple Rain podcast, if you don't follow Sutton on Twitter, both links are in the description right now. Go and do those things. And yeah, we really appreciate you guys. Like the video, hit the subscribe button. We hit 900 subs. Help us get to 1K. And we will
1K?
see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.